Do you think it's because they're worried that if he gets into power and he gets back into the office, that he's going to start investigating a lot of this stuff and the 51 former intelligence agents?
That's exactly what they're afraid of. Yeah. They're afraid of consequences. They're afraid of, and look, do I think the 51 intelligence agents who signed that letter should go to prison? No, but should they be stripped of their security clearance? Absolutely, I do. Right? They lied. They used their position of authority and lied to the American people about something that was in the national interest. If there are no consequences for that, then what are we doing? And
they're probably very concerned with a trial that's going to reveal what the elements of that particular story really were. Like
there's a lot of corruption there. There are, I'm sure, higher ups. There are people who said one thing in public but said something else in private. There probably is, at some level of that whole thing, people who maybe perjured themselves or at least unethically lied. Look, there's a lot going on there, but Donald Trump is not going out there and has never said, I want to arrest you because you're a Democrat. He's never said, I want to arrest you because you disagree with me. He's never said, I want to censor you even because you engage in disinformation. What he has said is that we should investigate some of the obvious sources of corruption in the United States government. That's not going after your political opponents. That's what Kamala Harris did, actually.
Well, one of the things that he's talked about pretty openly is that he could have gone after Hillary Clinton and he didn't because he thought it would look bad for the country.
Yes.
And it's true. I mean, he really could have. She did commit crimes.
The FBI, a Democrat who's supporting Kamala Harris, said that she committed, I think, not just crimes, but maybe felonies. She committed felonies, and what Donald Trump did is said, you know what, it's bad for the country. A lot of my voters would love me to prosecute Hillary Clinton, but it's bad for the country, so I'm not going to do it. That is the exact opposite, of course, of what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have done. And again, the media, it's a total upside-down universe where they accuse us of doing the very thing that they've done themselves.
Yeah, it's really wild to watch. It's the gaslighting is off the charts. So there's a bunch of things that people are deeply concerned with in this country, and it seems like for men, it's the economy. That seems like the primary thing that people are concerned with, and it seems like for a lot of women, it's abortion.
Sure,
abortion and Roe v. Wade is a big concern.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm correct, your position, and this is what they wanted when they overturned Roe v. Wade, they wanted to leave it in control of the states. Is this your position?
Yeah. So what President Trump has said, and what I've said, is abortion is now a matter for state legislatures, state voters to determine. And I mean, one, that's always what the argument was, right? If Roe versus Wade goes away, then the state legislatures, the state populations are going to make each individual abortion decision the same way that, California has different laws on a whole host of subjects than Alabama does. The idea is that, California would make its own abortion policy, Alabama would make its own abortion policy. And so there's a basic sort of principle of federalism at work there. But I also think that, knowing Donald Trump well, I think he's motivated also by a desire for us to just stop having a culture war over this particular issue and to let the voters in these states make these decisions while the national government focuses on things like lowering the cost of groceries and lowering the cost of housing and securing the southern border. And I think there's actually some great wisdom in that because, think about this. Abortion has not really been a political issue for 50 years. Now, we say that it is, and obviously we disagreed about it and people fought about it. It was always something the Supreme Court said, this is the way it is. There's no political decision-making. Every European nation has made abortion policy democratically. And that's what Donald Trump is saying. Do what every European nation has done. Let the voters decide what their abortion policy is going to be. And we're going to focus the national government on different things. And I say this as somebody who, I genuinely, want people to choose life. And I'm, a big believer in families. And I think, having children has been like a revelatory experience for me. And I want our country to be more pro-family, more pro-child. I think there are all these things that we can do at the federal level to make our country more pro-family and more pro-child, make child care easier, I've actually sponsored legislation to stop the surprise medical bills that happen when people, and I've seen this with my own wife, you go to the hospital, you come home, you've got a beautiful baby, but you've also got a $20,000 unexpected bill because you choose the wrong out-of-network healthcare provider when you're at the moment of delivering a baby. There are all these things we can do to make it easier for young women, young families to choose life. But Donald Trump, I think, wants abortion policy, and he said this explicitly, to be decided at the state level.
I'm not. It's not possible for me to get pregnant. So when I think about these things, according to some people, depends on who you ask. But I think when you talk,
you get with the 21st century, man. It's possible for a man to get pregnant now.
For most people, I think one of the issues is, or for a lot of people, one of the issues is that men are making decisions for what women can and can't do.
I hear that.
And one of the more concerning aspects of this is, like, say if you live in a state like Texas, where there's a limit to when you can get an abortion. I think it's like 6 weeks, which a lot of people think at that point in time, you can't even tell whether or not you're pregnant. And this puts a lot of women in like very vulnerable positions. And then there's this thought that they could go to another state where it is legal and have an abortion, but they could be possibly prosecuted for that in their state. That's concerning to me, that we can make, if there's a place in the country where it's legal to have a medical procedure and you live in a state where it's not legal, that your state can decide what you can and can't do with your body, which is essentially based on a religious idea. And a lot of I'm not criticizing it one way or another, but I'm saying that a lot of what this choose life thing is about, that life is precious and life is sacred and life begins at the moment of conception. And some people agree with this, but other people disagree with this. And it seems to be a lot of it is based in religion. My concern is using that to dictate whether or not a person can legally travel to another state. I don't think the government should be monitoring where you travel or what you do when you travel, as long as that thing is legal. And I'm concerned with this idea that you could be prosecuted for it in your state for doing something that's legal somewhere else.
I don't like the idea, to be clear. I've not heard of this maybe as like a possibility, but not as something that actually exists in the law. But I've not heard of somebody being arrested, and I don't like the idea of arresting people for moving about the country. I haven't heard of them doing it either. I've heard of the discussion. I've heard it as a threat.
Yes.
I don't like the idea, to be clear, of people getting arrested for freely moving around the country.
Right.
I think, so to your point about it being a religious idea, I mean, I would say I know a number of non-religious people who are very pro-life. And I think the honest answer is that what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what is the right balance between autonomy and life.
I think what people are afraid of is men telling women what they can and can't do with their bodies.
That's the autonomy value.
Yeah.
I get it, man. I get it. And I think that there is a very real and valid argument here that autonomy should take precedence here. But I also think, if we're being honest, there is an argument that life matters too.